They thought it was over. They buried you in silence, wrapped you in doubt, and walked away like the ending was written. But what they didn't know is the ground they left you on is the same ground you'll rise from. And when you rise, the silence will sound like thunder. There are moments in life when the silence feels like a verdict, when the absence of answers feels louder than any thunder that's ever rolled across the sky. You cry out, and the only sound you hear in return is your own echo bouncing back from the walls of your loneliness. You begin to wonder if anyone sees you. You start to question if you matter at all. Days turn to nights, and nights turn to seasons, and the weight of invisibility presses heavy on your spirit. But what if I told you that silence wasn't neglect? It was preparation. What if your isolation wasn't punishment, but the shaping of something greater than you've ever imagined? You were never forgotten, not for 1 second. Every tear that fell was counted. Every ache in your chest was understood. Every time you held on, when you wanted to let go, a note was made. Not by the world that dismissed you, but by the force that was forging you. The fire that surrounded you wasn't meant to burn you. It was meant to refine you. It wasn't destruction. It was definition. Steel doesn't become strong without heat. Diamonds don't shine without pressure. And a soul doesn't rise until it's been broken, tested, and tempered. The truth is, you were never out of sight. You were in the shadows where foundations are built. You were in the stillness where warriors are shaped. While the world looked away, the work was being done in secret. And now, when they look again, they won't recognize what you've become, because they saw the seed, but they never stayed long enough to witness the blooming. They saw the pain, but they didn't wait for the power it would produce. You were being hidden, not to be dismissed, but to be developed. Forging is not a gentle process. It's violent, deliberate, and purposeful. Metal is heated until it glows red with pain. Then it's struck again and again, shaped, folded, hardened. You've been through the heat. You've taken the blows, and every strike you thought would break you was shaping your strength. Every delay you thought was denial, was designing your destiny. You weren't being passed over. You were being prepared. They may have walked away. They may have turned their backs. They may have written you off, counted you out, erased your name from their plans. But your purpose never needed their permission. Your calling required their applause, and the fire that lives in you was never theirs to give or take away. While they forgot you, life remembered what you were made for. While they dismissed you, you were deep in the process of becoming unshakable. Sometimes the silence is where the loudest growth happens. When no one is watching, when no one is clapping, when it's just you and your fight to stay standing. That's where real strength is built. Not in the spotlight, but in the struggle. Not in recognition, but in resistance. And it's there that you discover who you truly are. You find that your worth was never tied to attention. Your power was never dependent on praise. You are more than the approval you were denied. You are stronger than the love you didn't receive. And you are rising, not because they believed in you, but because you finally started to believe in yourself. They will look again. Oh, yes, they will. And when they do, they will no longer see the forgotten soul they thought they left behind. They'll see a force, a light, a survivor who didn't just endure the fire, but emerged from it transformed. They will hear the voice they once ignored. And this time, it won't be asking for permission. It will be speaking with authority, because what was forged in the fire no longer fears the flames. You were never forgotten. You were being strengthened in the silence, elevated in the absence, prepared in the pain. Everything that tried to erase, you only helped to define you. Everything that tried to crush you only gave shape to your courage. And while they slept on you, you were waking up to a version of yourself they never imagined. The one who walks in quiet power, the one who knows who they are without needing to shout it. The one who was forged, not found. There will always be voices, loud ones, harsh ones, ones that think they know the whole story from a single page. They speak with certainty about your limits, your failures, your flaws. They label you too soon and too small. They shake their heads at your mistakes, whisper behind your back, raise their eyebrows when you try again. They call it foolishness, desperation, denial. They think the chapter they caught you in was the conclusion when it was only the beginning. But what they don't know is that silence is not surrender. Setback is not the end. And every time you fell, something stronger stood up in your place. They judged you when you were still healing. They condemned you while you were still crawling out of the wreckage. They mistook your survival mode for defeat. But deep in the shadows, beyond their opinions, something powerful was building. You see, the world loves to watch you fall, but it rarely sticks around to see how you rise. And when you do rise, it won't look the way they expected. It will be quieter than they imagined, but more powerful than they can deny. Because judgment echoes for a moment, but comebacks echo through generations. There's something sacred about being counted out. When people stop expecting anything from you, when they stop watching, stop believing, that's when the most unshakable parts of you are born. That's when the hunger gets deeper. That's when your will becomes unbreakable. You stop chasing applause and start chasing purpose. You stop waiting for permission and start walking in power. Because after being crushed by opinion and still choosing to rise, you no longer fear what they think. You know who you are. Judgment is cheap. It costs nothing to criticize. It costs nothing to stand at a distance and assume. But comebacks are expensive. They cost tears, silence, isolation, courage. They require you to rebuild with bare hands when no one offers help. A dream. They demand that you keep walking even when shame tries to chain you to the past. They ask you to believe in yourself even when every voice, every glance, every rumor says you shouldn't. But when you push through all of that, when you rise up anyway, that's when your comeback begins to roar. And that roar can't be silenced because it wasn't made from pride. It was made from pain. It wasn't made from arrogance. It was made from endurance. It carries the weight of every night. You didn't give up every time you faced yourself in the mirror and chose to keep going. Every moment you rewrote the narrative they tried to force on you. You became something their judgment could never predict. A walking testimony that healing is real, that redemption is possible, that strength doesn't always shout. It endures. They will hear it. Oh, they will. Your comeback will speak volumes without needing to say a word. It'll be seen in the way you walk now, taller, more certain. It'll be heard in the way you speak now, calm but unwavering. It'll be felt in the way you show up, no longer begging for space, but owning your place. And they'll try to reconcile what they thought you were with who you've become. They'll look for the broken pieces they once laughed at, but all they'll see is the fire in your eyes. You were not built to be understood by those who gave up. too soon. You were not made to fit inside the opinions of those who never dared to fall and rise again. You are living proof that scars are not shame. They are survival. That mistakes are not the end. They are movement. That failure is not fatal. It is formation. And when your comeback unfolds, it will not need to explain itself to those who stopped believing. It will simply stand, unbothered, unshaken, undeniable, because your comeback is not for applause. It's for purpose. It's not a response to their doubt. It's a response to your calling. It's not fueled by revenge. It's fueled by resilience. And while they judged your journey, you were busy walking it. While they criticized your detour, you were still climbing. While they mocked your silence, you were listening to something deeper, something truer, something that didn't need validation. It just needed time. So when you'll rise, and you will rise, it will not be to prove them wrong. It will be to prove to yourself that every moment in the dark had a reason, that every step in pain had purpose, that every breath you took while breaking was part of the building. And when the light hits your face again, when the dust clears and your voice speaks louder than it ever has before, the world won't be able to deny what you've become. They won't be able to ignore it, rewrite it, or reduce it, because your comeback is louder than their judgment. They tried to end you, not with weapons, not with chains, but with something colder, something quieter. Neglect, dismissal, silence. They overlooked you, not because you had nothing to offer, but because they could not see the weight of your soul, the strength in your scars, or the fire in your silence. They counted you out because they thought your value came from visibility. They forgot that sometimes the strongest things grow in the dark. Sometimes the deepest roots take hold where no one is looking. And you, yes, you, were never finished. You were just paused. You were not erased, only hidden. You were not defeated. You were being refined. While they turned their backs and labeled you broken, something sacred was still breathing inside you. And now the world will have to reckon with the truth they ignored, that your comeback was never a question of if, only when. They underestimated you because you were quiet, because you didn't fight back with rage or react with noise. But inside, something unshakable was forming. The silence didn't mean surrender. The waiting didn't mean weakness. It meant growth. It meant you were gathering what they could never see. Patience, grit, and the sacred kind of strength that only suffering teaches. They watched you fall and mistook your stillness for defeat. They didn't know the ground wasn't your grave. It was your garden. And the tears that soaked into the soil were never wasted. They watered something. They fed the seed of your return. And when you rise, and you will rise, your footsteps will echo louder than the voices that tried to drown you out. You don't owe them rage. You don't owe them explanation. Your existence, your survival, your return, that will be the answer. That will be the sermon. That will be the thunderclap that breaks every lie they spoke over you. Every whisper that told you it was over. Every stare that said you weren't enough. Let your breath be the rebuttal. Let your rising be the revolution. They tried to define you by your lowest moment, by the version of you that was most wounded, most tired, most overwhelmed. But you were never meant to stay there. And now you are returning, not as who you were, but as who you were always becoming. Stronger, sharper, clearer. And you won't have to shout to be heard. Your presence will speak. Your perseverance will echo. Your light will expose what they refused to see. They tried to end your story in the middle. They tried to write your final chapter with ink they didn't own. But you're the author now. You've picked up the pen. And the next lines will not be written with bitterness, but with fire, with resolve, with purpose. Because once you've been through the kind of pain that teaches, you don't come back the same. You come back with vision. You come back with truth. You come back unafraid to take up space. Not to prove anything to them, but to finally live what you've always carried within. You survived things that were meant to destroy you. You woke up in mornings you didn't think you'd see. You kept breathing in places that tried to suffocate your hope. That's not weakness. That's warfare. And every day you didn't give up, every tear you turned into fuel, every lonely night you whispered, "Not yet." That was you fighting back in the only way you knew how. They will wonder how you're still standing. They will ask how you smiled after all that broke you. And the answer will not be a word. It will be your life, your courage, your return. You will not need revenge. You will carry redemption. You will not need applause. You will carry peace. Because true power is quiet. True healing doesn't need to shout. and your strength will be the loudest silence they've ever heard. And while they were watching others shine, chasing noise and chasing trends, you were being transformed. They celebrated the ones who looked powerful while ignoring the one who became powerful, not in appearance, but in endurance, in truth, in stillness. And now you walk with a weight they could never carry, the weight of authenticity, of knowing what it means to break and still believe, to bleed and still build, to be empty and still pour into others. That kind of strength is not given. It is earned, and you earned it. You are the answer to every voice that said you wouldn't make it. You are the proof that broken things can still shine. You are the message that pain doesn't get the final word. They thought silence was the end of your story. But the silence was sacred. It was where your fire grew. It was where your soul stood up when no one was looking. And now your return will be louder than any rejection ever spoken over you. They didn't see what you were carrying. They didn't see what it cost you just to show up. But that's okay. They don't have to see it, because the fruit will speak. The rise will speak. The healing will speak. And what they buried will bloom, not in revenge, not in ego, but in undeniable power, quiet, sacred, and unstoppable. Let the silence be your stage. Let the comeback be your voice, because they tried to bury your future beneath the weight of your past. But what they buried was a seed.